Captain Elias Vance stared at the blinking distress signal on his console. The small red dot pulsed on the holographic map, floating in deep space near the asteroid belt of Delta IV. His ship, the Argonaut, had been patrolling the outer territories when the signal appeared. "Another ghost signal?" asked Lieutenant Carter, his second in command. Elias shook his head. "No, this one's real." The message was weak, almost broken, but one thing was clear: it wasn't human. The frequency didn't match any known Terran codes. That meant only one thing: alien. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The galaxy was not a friendly place. Humanity had fought hard to claim its small corner of space, and most alien species were not allies. Some were outright hostile. Still, Elias couldn't ignore the signal. "Prepare a boarding team," he ordered. "We're checking it out." The Argonaut moved cautiously through the asteroid belt, its scanners searching for the source of the distress call. Finally, they found it. A small damaged ship, barely holding together. Its hull was cracked, and one of its engines had been completely destroyed. Elias and his team suited up, then launched in a shuttle toward the wreckage. As they stepped inside the dark, silent ship, the air smelled of burnt metal and smoke. Sparks flickered from broken panels. Bodies lay on the floor, aliens, unlike anything Elias had seen before. Carter scanned one of them. Life signs. Negative. They're all dead. Elias clenched his jaw. Whoever these people were, they had sent a distress call, but it had come too late. Or so he thought. A faint noise echoed from deeper inside the ship. A whisper. A breath. "Stay alert," he muttered. His team moved forward, weapons ready. The noise led them to a locked containment pod, its glass cracked but still intact. Inside lay a female alien, her breathing weak, her eyes half closed. She was different from the others. Tall, slender, with violet-tinted skin and glowing golden markings across her arms and forehead. Her hair was long, dark, and slightly metallic, shifting colors under the dim emergency lights. "She's alive," Carter whispered. Elias studied her. She looked injured but not hostile. And yet she was inside a containment pod. Had her own people locked her in? Or had someone else done this to her? She slowly opened her eyes and saw them. For a brief moment, pure fear flashed across her face. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, weak, but filled with urgency. "Please, help." Elias didn't understand her words, but the meaning was clear. "Sir, this could be dangerous," Carter warned. "She's not a threat," Elias replied. "You don't know that." Elias hesitated. His orders were simple: never interfere with alien conflicts. If this woman was part of a war, then helping her could make enemies. But leaving her here to die, that wasn't something Elias could do. He made his decision. "We're taking her with us." Carter sighed but nodded. "Understood." Elias hit the release button on the pod. With a hiss, it unlocked. The alien woman collapsed forward, weak and exhausted. Elias caught her before she hit the ground. Her golden eyes locked onto his. She looked surprised, almost confused, as if she hadn't expected kindness. "We've got you," Elias said, even though he knew she didn't understand. The team hurried back to the shuttle, carrying her aboard. As they left the wreckage behind, Elias glanced at the bodies one last time. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just an accident. Someone had attacked this ship. And whoever they were, they might still be out there. The moment they returned to the Argonaut, the medical team took over. The alien woman was placed in the medbay, and the ship's AI began analyzing her biology. Hours passed. Elias sat in his quarters, watching the stars outside his window. He had saved an alien life today, but what if he had just invited danger onto his ship? A beep interrupted his thoughts. The alien woman was awake. Elias stood, took a deep breath, and walked toward the medbay. He had questions, and he hoped she had answers. Elias entered the medbay, his footsteps quiet against the steel floor. The alien woman lay on the medical bed, her violet skin illuminated by the soft blue glow of the diagnostic scanners. She was awake now, her golden eyes flickering with confusion and caution. She turned her head slightly when she saw him, her body tensing as if preparing to defend herself. Elias raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Easy. You're safe." She didn't respond, but her gaze stayed locked on him. The ship's AI had tried analyzing her language, but the database had no match. They had no way of communicating, yet. Dr. Lane, the ship's chief medic, walked over with a datapad. Her injuries weren't too serious, mostly exhaustion and mild radiation exposure. She's recovering quickly. Elias nodded, relieved. Any progress with translation? Lane shook her head. Not yet. We need more time to analyze her speech patterns. Elias turned back to the alien woman. She was watching them both carefully, as if measuring their intentions. He decided to try a different approach. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ration bar. He unwrapped it, took a bite, and then placed the rest on the tray beside her. Her eyes flicked from his face to the food. Hesitantly, she reached out, picked it up, and sniffed it. A moment later, she took a small bite. Elias smiled. "See, we're not enemies." She chewed carefully, still wary, but she didn't reject the offering. Just then, a loud beep came from the ship's control panel. The comms officer's voice crackled through the speaker. "Captain, you need to see this." Elias gave the alien woman one last glance before heading to the bridge. When he arrived, Carter was already at the main console, staring at the holographic display with a deep frown. "What is it?" Elias asked. Carter pointed at the screen. "We intercepted an unknown transmission. It's on an alien frequency, but it's directed at us." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Let's hear it." Carter pressed a button, and a strange, distorted voice echoed through the speakers. The language was unfamiliar, but the tone was urgent. The ship's AI worked rapidly to analyze it. After a few seconds, a rough translation appeared on the screen. "Help coming. Hide." Silence filled the bridge. Elias exchanged a glance with Carter. "Who sent this?" "No idea," Carter replied. "But it came from deep space, not far from where we found her." Elias clenched his jaw. This was no coincidence. "Could she have sent it?" Carter asked, voice tense. Elias shook his head. "She's been unconscious until now. Then someone else is out there. And they know we have her." Elias turned to the helm officer. "Scan the area. I want to know if we're alone." The officer nodded and ran a deep space scan. A few moments later, the results flashed on the screen. Carter cursed under his breath. "We're not alone." A large object was moving through space toward them, slow, cloaked, and watching. Elias gripped the edge of the console. "Is it a ship?" "Too far to confirm, but it's big." Elias took a deep breath, the distress signal. The attack on the alien woman's ship. And now, an unknown presence nearby. It all connected. "Get us out of here," Elias ordered. "Now." The Argonaut's engines roared to life, pulling away from the asteroid belt at full speed. But as they moved, something terrifying happened. The unknown object changed course. It was following them. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Elias clenched his jaw. "Raise shields. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The chase had begun. Back in the medbay, the alien woman sat up, sensing the tension in the air. She looked toward the ceiling as if she could feel the presence of something approaching. Then, for the first time, she spoke clearly in a voice filled with warning. "Run." The moment the alien woman whispered the word "run," a cold chill ran down Elias's spine. On the bridge of the Argonaut, the crew worked quickly, their hands moving over controls as the ship accelerated. The unidentified object continued following them, its presence like a shadow in the void. Elias gripped the armrest of his captain's chair. "Do we have a visual yet?" The helm officer, Ensign Patel, shook his head. Not yet, sir. It's cloaked, but it's big. Maybe a battleship. Lieutenant Carter frowned at the readings. Whatever it is, it's not backing off. It's keeping pace with us. Elias exhaled sharply. This was no coincidence. This ship, whatever it was, knew they had the alien woman, and it wanted her. He hit the comms button. Dr. Lane, is our guest stable enough to move? A moment later, the doctor's voice came through the speakers. She's weak, but she's awake. Elias made his decision. I'm going down there. Carter gave him a sharp look. Captain, if this is what I think it is, we need you here. Let me go. Elias hesitated but then nodded. Go, find out what she knows. Carter hurried off the bridge while Elias kept his eyes on the dark void outside. Something was coming. He could feel it. In the medbay, Carter stepped inside to find the alien woman sitting up on the medical bed. She looked calmer now, but her golden eyes burned with urgency. She stared at him as he approached. You know who's out there, don't you? Carter asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she touched her throat as if trying to find the right words. Then, in a slow, careful voice, she spoke. Zarak, Dominion. Carter felt his stomach drop. He knew that name. Everyone in the Terran fleet did. The Zarak Dominion was one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, a war-driven race that expanded through conquest and destruction. They had clashed with humanity before, though never in full-scale war. Yet, and now one of their ships was hunting them. Carter pressed his comm. Captain, we have a problem. On the bridge, Elias listened to Carter's report with a grim expression. A Zarak warship. That explained everything. The attack on the alien woman's ship, the distress call, the warning message. Sir, Paddle said, voice tight. We have visual. The view screen flickered, and for the first time, they saw it. A massive black warship emerged from the shadows, its hull covered in jagged bone-like plating. Red energy pulsed along its structure, and its weapons hummed with power. It was twice the size of the Argonaut, and it was ready to strike. Dame, Elias muttered. Then the comms crackled. A deep, guttural voice filled the bridge. Terran vessel, surrender the fugitive, and we will let you live. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Silence filled the room. Elias didn't hesitate. He hit the comm button. Not happening. The alien warship fired. The battle begins. The Argonaut shook violently as energy blasts slammed into its shields. The crew scrambled to stabilize the ship as alarms blared across the bridge. Shields at 60%. Patel shouted. Return fire. Elias ordered. The ship's railguns fired, sending streaks of plasma toward the enemy vessel. The shots hit, but barely did any damage. The Zarak warship was heavily armored. Elias cursed. Evasive maneuvers. The Argonaut twisted through space, dodging incoming fire, but the enemy was relentless. In the medbay, the alien woman clutched the sides of the bed as the ship rocked violently. She turned to Carter, her expression desperate. Bridge, take me. Carter hesitated, then nodded. Come on. He helped her to her feet, and they rushed toward the command center. A desperate gamble. On the bridge, Elias gritted his teeth. They couldn't win this fight. The Zarak warship was too strong, and backup was too far away. Then the doors slid open, and Carter entered, bringing the alien woman with him. She walked forward, unsteady but determined. She pointed at the enemy warship, and then at the holographic display. Not warship, she said, voice strained. Hunting vessel. One leader. If leader falls. Elias caught on immediately. The rest will scatter. She nodded. Elias turned to his weapons officer. Target their command center. The Argonaut dove through space, maneuvering dangerously close to the enemy warship. The Zarak vessel fired again, but Elias didn't flinch. Fire everything we've got. A barrage of missiles and railgun shots slammed into the Zarak warship's bridge section. The ship trembled under the impact. Then, an explosion ripped through the enemy vessel. The command center was gone. The remaining Zarak fighters hesitated. Then, just as the alien woman predicted, they scattered. The battle was over. Aftermath. The crew of the Argonaut let out a breath of relief. Elias turned to the alien woman. "You just saved us." She gave a weak nod. "Not safe. More come." Elias's stomach tightened. This wasn't over. And something told him. The real battle was still ahead. The enemy ship drifted in space, broken and lifeless. Small fires burned along its shattered hull, and pieces of debris floated into the void. The battle was over. But Elias didn't feel victorious. The alien woman's last words echoed in his mind. "Not safe. More come." On the bridge of the Argonaut, the crew worked to repair damage from the battle. Sparks flickered from broken control panels, and warning lights flashed across the screens. Lieutenant Carter turned to Elias, his face serious. "Captain, we barely survived that fight. If more of them are coming, we need to get out of here." Elias looked at the alien woman, who stood near the center of the bridge, her golden eyes filled with concern. "Who else is coming?" Elias asked her. She hesitated, then placed her hand on the ship's holographic display. The screen flickered, and an unfamiliar star map appeared. Elias leaned forward. "What is this?" She pointed to a distant system on the map, and spoke carefully, choosing her words. "Zarak. Fleet. Coming." The room went silent. Carter ran a quick scan on the system she pointed at. A few seconds later, his face paled. "She's not lying. I'm picking up long-range signals, multiple warships." Elias clenched his jaw. "How long until they reach us?" Patel checked the readings. "At their current speed, maybe 6 hours." Elias exhaled slowly. They had 6 hours before an entire Zarak fleet arrived. And they would not survive another fight. A difficult choice. Elias turned back to the alien woman. "Why are they after you?" She lowered her gaze, her expression troubled. Then, after a long pause, she spoke. "I not like them," she said softly. Elias exchanged a glance with Carter. "You mean, you're not part of the Zarak Dominion?" She shook her head. "I escape." Carter frowned. "Escape from what?" The alien woman took a deep breath, as if the memories pained her. "Zarak, take my people. Make us soldiers, slaves." She hesitated, then touched her temple. "Change us." Elias's grip tightened on the chair. Genetic experiments. Forced control. He had heard rumors that the Zarak Dominion altered species to serve their empire. But this was the first time he had met someone who had escaped. "They won't stop, will they?" Elias asked. She shook her head. "No, they want me back." Silence filled the room. Then Carter spoke. "Captain, if we hand her over, they might let us go." Elias shot him a glare. "That's not an option." Carter sighed. "I had to say it." Elias turned back to the star map. 6 hours. That wasn't enough time to run. But maybe. "Is there anywhere we can hide?" he asked. The alien woman studied the map, then pointed to a nebula nearby. "Here. Energy storms. Zarak. Blind inside." Carter checked the system. "She's right. The radiation and magnetic fields would block their sensors." Elias nodded. "Then that's where we're going." The race against time. The Argonaut's engines roared as they changed course. The crew worked fast, fixing the ship's damaged systems while scanning for any sign of pursuit. Elias remained on the bridge, eyes locked on the screen. The long-range sensors showed 3 red dots moving toward them. The Zarak fleet. "They're closing in," Patel warned. "Push the engines to max," Elias ordered. "We need to reach that nebula first." The ship trembled as it accelerated. The stars blurred outside the windows. Minutes felt like hours. Then, alarms blared. Carter cursed. They're gaining on us. Elias gritted his teeth. How close? Close enough, Paddle said. They'll be in firing range in 2 minutes. Elias slammed his fist on the console. They weren't going to make it. Then, suddenly, the alien woman stepped forward. She looked at Elias, determination in her golden eyes. I can stop them, she said. Elias frowned. How? She hesitated, then touched the side of her head again. I connected to them. Before. Still. A little. Elias's eyes widened. She still had a link to the Zarek fleet. I send message, she continued. Make them. Delay. Carter looked skeptical. And if it doesn't work? She met Elias's gaze. Then we die. Silence. Elias took a deep breath, then nodded. Do it. The alien woman closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. A faint golden glow spread across her markings. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the Zarek ship slowed. Carter's console beeped. They're hesitating, he said in disbelief. Patel checked the scanners. Their leadership is holding position. The rest are following. Elias turned to the alien woman. She opened her eyes, exhaustion on her face. They confused, she whispered, but not for long. Elias didn't waste time. Helm, take us into the nebula, now. The Argonaut roared forward. The blue and purple clouds of the nebula loomed ahead. Just as the Zarek ships recovered and started moving again, the Argonaut disappeared into the storm. Inside the nebula, lightning flashed outside the ship as they navigated through the swirling storm. Radiation disrupted their systems, but the Zarek fleet was nowhere in sight. We did it, Carter breathed. They can't track us in here. Elias turned to the alien woman. She looked exhausted but relieved. You saved us again, he said. She managed a small nod. Still not safe. They wait outside. Elias exhaled. She was right. The Zarek wouldn't leave. They had escaped, for now. But the hunt wasn't over yet. The Argonaut floated deep inside the nebula, surrounded by swirling blue and purple clouds. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the ship's hull. The energy storms made it impossible for the Zarek fleet to track them, but Elias knew they were still out there, waiting. On the bridge, the crew worked to stabilize the ship. The radiation from the nebula was interfering with their systems, causing flickering lights and glitching displays. Lieutenant Carter checked the sensors. No sign of movement outside. They're still waiting for us to come out. Elias exhaled. Then we're stuck. We can't stay here forever, Patel warned. The radiation is already affecting our ship. Another few hours, and we'll start losing life support. Elias nodded. They had bought time, but not enough. His gaze shifted to the alien woman, who stood near the central console. Her golden eyes glowed faintly as she stared at the nebula. She looked exhausted but deep in thought. Elias walked over. You knew this place would hide us. How? She hesitated before answering. My people used this place before. To escape. Elias frowned. Your people? Are they still out there? She looked down, sadness flickering across her face. Few. Hiding. Running. Carter crossed his arms. Why does the Zarek want you so badly? The alien woman took a deep breath, then slowly raised her hand. The markings on her skin glowed faintly. Because I was one of them. Silence filled the room. Elias narrowed his eyes. One of them. She nodded. Zarek took me, changed me, made me part of them. She touched her temple. They connected me to their network, their thoughts, their orders, but I broke free. Patel looked uneasy. So, you were a Zarek soldier. She hesitated. Not soldier. Something more. Elias's stomach tightened. He had heard stories of the Zarek overseers, beings who controlled entire fleets, their minds linked to thousands of soldiers, if she was one of them. Carter seemed to realize it too. Wait, you were an overseer. She gave a slow nod. Yes, but not anymore. Elias ran a hand through his hair. This changed everything. The Zorak weren't just hunting her because she escaped. They were hunting her because she was once part of their command structure. She knew their strategies, their secrets, and that made her the most dangerous person in the galaxy. A new plan. Elias turned to Carter. If she was an overseer, does that mean she can still access their network? Carter frowned. I don't know. The Zarek use a telepathic connection. If she broke free, they might have locked her out. Elias turned back to the alien woman. Can you still hear them? She closed her eyes. For a long moment, there was silence. Then she opened them again, her expression tense. Not hear, but feel, she said. They are close. Searching. Elias nodded. Then we use that. Carter raised an eyebrow. Use what? If she can sense them, maybe she can mislead them. Send a false signal. Make them think we escaped somewhere else. Carter hesitated. That's risky. If they detect what she's doing, they'll know we're still in the nebula. Elias met the alien woman's gaze. Can you do it? She thought for a moment, then nodded. I can try. The distraction. The bridge was silent as she closed her eyes and focused. The markings on her skin glowed brighter, pulsing with energy. She took a deep breath, then whispered, Go, search, other place. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Patel's console beeped. His eyes widened. Captain, the Zarek fleet is moving. Elias stepped forward. Which direction? Patel studied the readings. They're spreading out. 2 of their ships are heading away from the nebula, scanning in the wrong direction. Carter whistled. It worked. Elias turned to the alien woman. She looked drained, as if the effort had taken everything out of her. You did great, he told her. She gave a weak nod but didn't reply. Escape route. Patel spoke up again. Captain, we still have one problem. The Zarak's main battleship is still out there. It didn't move. Elias's jaw tightened. They're not stupid. They know we might still be here. Carter sighed. So we're back to square one. Elias thought for a moment, then turned to the alien woman. You said your people used this nebula to escape before. How? She took a deep breath. There is a path. Old tunnels. Inside the nebula. Elias raised an eyebrow. Tunnels. She pointed to the map, drawing a faint line with her finger. Magnetic currents. If we follow them, we can leave. Unseen. Carter checked the readings. She's right. There are energy streams inside the nebula. If we ride one, it could hide our signature. Elias nodded. Then that's our way out. The final gamble. The Argonauts' engines roared as they followed the alien woman's directions. The ship drifted carefully through the swirling clouds, using the nebula's magnetic fields to mask their movement. Patel watched the scanners. So far, so good. They're not detecting us. Elias kept his eyes on the screen. One mistake, and they would be found. Minutes passed. The ship weaved through the nebula, following the hidden path. The Zarek battleship remained motionless outside, waiting. Then, Patel's console beeped again. We're almost clear. Elias's grip tightened on the chair. Just a little more. Suddenly, a pulse of energy swept through the nebula. Patel's eyes widened. The Zarek ship just sent a scanning wave. Elias's heart pounded. Did they see us? The room was silent as the wave passed over the ship. The crew held their breath. Then, nothing happened. Patel exhaled. No response. They didn't see us. A moment later, the Argonaut broke free of the nebula, emerging into the open void of space. Carter let out a relieved laugh. We made it. Elias nodded but didn't relax. They had escaped, but the hunt wasn't over yet. The Zarak would keep searching, and Elias knew they would not stop until they found her. The Argonaut floated in open space, far from the nebula. The crew had escaped the Xeric fleet, but their troubles were far from over. On the bridge, Elias studied the star map. Their current position was safe for now, but he knew it wouldn't last. "They'll be looking for us," Carter said, leaning against the console. "It's only a matter of time before they figure out we're gone." Elias nodded. "We need a place to hide. Somewhere they won't follow." Patel scanned nearby systems. "There's a station a few hours from here. Neutral territory. We can refuel and make repairs." Elias considered it. A station meant supplies, but also risks. If the Zorak had spies there, they could be exposed. Before he could decide, the alien woman spoke. "No," she said firmly. "Not safe." Elias turned to her. "Why?" She hesitated, then pointed at the map. "Zorak have eyes everywhere. They will find us." Carter frowned. "Then where do we go?" She stepped closer to the console, her golden eyes scanning the map. Then she pointed at a system deep in uncharted space. "Here." Patel checked the readings. "That system is empty. No planets, no stations, nothing." She nodded. "But my people." Elias's eyes widened. "You're saying your people are hiding there?" She hesitated, then said, "I hope." A desperate journey. Elias made his decision. Set course for the coordinates. The Argonaut's engines roared to life as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars blurred outside the windows. Carter crossed his arms. "I hope this isn't a trap." Elias shot him a look. "She's saved us twice already. Let's trust her." Carter sighed. "Fine, but I still don't like flying blind." The signal. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, Patel's console beeped. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal." Elias leaned forward. "What kind of signal?" Patel frowned. "It's a distress call." The alien woman's eyes widened. "My people." Elias didn't hesitate. "Bring it up." A crackling voice filled the bridge. It spoke in a strange, broken language, but the alien woman's expression turned to fear. She whispered, "They are under attack." Elias clenched his jaw. The Zorak found them first. The trap. The Argonaut dropped out of FTL near the system. A shattered moon floated in the distance, debris scattered around it. Then, the ship's alarms blared. Carter cursed. "It's a trap." 3 Zorak warships uncloaked from the shadows, their weapons charged, locking onto the Argonaut. Patel's voice was tense. "They were waiting for us." Elias's mind raced. How did they know? Then he saw the alien woman. She was frozen in place, her golden eyes wide in shock. Realization struck Elias like a punch. Carter whispered, "Captain, she led them to us." The betrayal. Elias turned to her. "Tell me the truth. Did you send them a signal?" Her face filled with pain. I did not mean to." Carter stepped forward. "You expect us to believe that?" She looked desperate. "I did not know. They, still inside me." She touched her temple, her fingers trembling. Still watching. Elias understood. She had broken free from the Zorak, but their connection to her was not completely gone. They had used her, and now they had them trapped. The Zorak ships opened fire. Explosions rocked the Argonaut, throwing the crew off balance. Patel shouted, "Shields are failing." Carter grabbed Elias's arm. "We need to surrender." Elias's mind raced. There had to be another way. The alien woman grabbed his hand. "Trust me," she pleaded. "One last time." Elias met her golden eyes and made his choice. "Helm, prepare for a full-speed charge." Carter's eyes widened. "Are you crazy?" Elias grinned. "Maybe." The Argonaut roared forward, straight at the enemy ships. And the battle for survival began. The Argonaut surged forward, engines blazing as it sped toward the Zorak warships. The enemy fleet was larger, stronger, and heavily armed, but Elias had no intention of surrendering. On the bridge, alarms blared as Paddle shouted, "Shields at 20%. Another hit, and we're finished." Elias gritted his teeth. "Hold steady." Carter clenched his fists. "This is madness. We can't fight 3 warships." "We're not fighting," Elias said. "We're escaping." The alien woman, still standing near the command console, took a deep breath. "I can help." Elias turned to her. "How?" She placed her hand on the console. The markings on her skin began to glow, pulsing with energy. "I will talk to them." Carter frowned. "Talk? They're shooting at us." She met Elias's gaze. "They still believe I belong to them. If I can reach their network, I can make them hesitate." Elias hesitated. It was risky, but they had no other option. "Do it." The connection. The alien woman closed her eyes. Her body tensed as she focused. A strange hum filled the air, vibrating through the ship. The lights flickered. Patel's console beeped. "Captain, something's happening." On the main screen, the Zarek warships stopped firing. Their glowing weapons powered down. Carter's jaw dropped. Did she just shut them off? The alien woman trembled, sweat forming on her forehead. "Not for long. They are resisting." Elias turned to Patel. "How much time do we have?" Patel checked the readings. "Maybe a minute. 2 at most." Elias nodded. "That's enough." The escape plan. Elias pointed at the shattered moon in the distance. "Patel, can we use that debris field?" Patel's eyes lit up. "Yes. If we dive into the wreckage, their sensors will have trouble tracking us." Elias grinned. "Then let's move." The Argonaut's engines flared as it raced toward the moon's remains. The ship dodged floating chunks of rock and metal, weaving through the destruction. Behind them, the Zarek warships came back to life. Carter cursed. "They're moving again." The alien woman gasped, gripping her head. "I cannot hold them anymore." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did enough." The final gamble. A red warning flashed on Patel's console. They locked weapons on us. Elias exhaled. This was it. Then, he saw something on the scanners. A large asteroid, drifting toward the enemy fleet. An idea formed in his mind. A risky, reckless, crazy idea. "Carter," he said, "fire at the asteroid." Carter blinked. "Wait, what?" Elias pointed at the screen. "If we hit it hard enough, the debris will smash into them." Carter grinned. "Captain, you're insane." Elias smirked. "I know." The last shot. The Argonaut's main cannon charged up. The ship trembled as the weapon gathered energy. Patel counted down. Target locked. 3, 2, 1. Carter slammed the button. A blinding blast shot forward, striking the asteroid with full force. The massive rock shattered into thousands of fragments, sending debris flying in all directions. The Zarek ships were caught in the chaos. Their shields flickered as the storm of rock and metal tore through their hulls. One ship exploded instantly. Another spun out of control, its engines failing. Only the flagship remained, but it was badly damaged. Elias wasted no time. "Full speed ahead. Get us out of here." The Argonaut roared forward, leaving the destruction behind. The Zarek flagship tried to pursue, but its engines sputtered. It was too slow. They had won. A new beginning. Minutes later, the Argonaut reached deep space. The crew sat in stunned silence, breathing heavily. "We made it," Carter said in disbelief. Elias nodded, then turned to the alien woman. She looked exhausted but relieved. "You saved us," Elias said. "Thank you." She gave a small smile. "No, you saved me." Elias chuckled. "Guess we're even then." She looked at the stars, her golden eyes filled with hope. "My people may still be out there. I must find them." Elias nodded. "Then we'll help." Carter sighed. "Here we go again." Elias grinned. Let's set course. A new journey begins. The Argonaut vanished into the stars, free, alive, and ready for whatever came next.